We got my locker number 57, and sort of looked around, and Tom's there, and Justin Leonard's there, and Ernie's there, and all these majors. I'm thinking, what am I doing here?
It was an enclosure that was for only major winners, and we started looking at all the names. There was only major winners in there, and he says, I don't think I should be in here. I think they've made a mistake. You know, he was talking like that. I went, that might be that's a good omen, that.
In July 2011, Royal St George's Golf Club played host to the Open Championship. 156 players from all around the world assembled on the Kent coastline, dreaming of joining a lineage of Open champions at Sandwich, from Harry Vardon to Walter Hagen to Greg Norman. For one man, defending champion Louis Westhuizen, the first task was to hand back the sport's most prized silverware.
It's kind of a passing of the baton, and I always say to the guy, I trust you just lending it to us for the week, and I'm sure you'll get it back on Sunday.
Brought the jug.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You're just lending it to us for a few days?
Hopefully, yeah.
It's the end of a champion's year, marks it.
Been a great champion.
I think the champion feels that he's sort of parting with a piece of him by giving the claret jug back, but his name's on that trophy forever.
Royal St George's had staged the Open more than any other English venue, but this was a first. The championship started with two Englishmen occupying the top two positions in world rankings, Lee Westwood and Luke Donald. Inevitably, home hopes were high. The flag of St George was flying high.
I think being number one makes everything a little bit different, a little bit more expectation, a little bit more media. But Rory obviously is at the forefront of a lot of people's minds, and rightly so. He was extremely impressive in the US Open, and winning majors is a big deal, and he did it in great fashion. So a lot of the attention is on him, and maybe a little bit more of the pressure as well.
Since dominating the US Open a month earlier with a record low score, full media glare was focused on the 22-year-old from Northern Ireland.
I mean, it's the one that I probably want to win more than anything else, but I mean, I don't rank them in any certain order. It's nice to get my first major, a few weeks ago, and I'm just looking for my second now, and hopefully it's this week, and if not, it might be somewhere else.
Play began on Thursday, the 14th of July at 6:30 a.m. The distinction of hitting the opening tee shot was awarded to a likeable American, Jerry Kelly. On his last visit here in 2003, Kelly carded an 11 on the very first hole.
They say, oh, you're going to Royal St George. Have you played there? Yes, I hold an open record there. And I try not to tell them, but if they press me, I have to tell them. It's always great seeing Ivor on the tee, for one, but Mr. Dustin was out there, and I told him, thank you. I consider this an honor.
He had a big smile on his face when he got a good drive away, and there's going to be no 11 this time.
2 hours, 39 minutes later, the first tee was very different. Rory McIlroy was about to launch his opening round in company with Ricky Fowler. The 2002 Open champion, Ernie Els, was also part of this appealing three-ball, but it was the American that struck first. An outrageous birdie on the first, and he eventually signed for a 70, level par. In contrast, McIlroy was slow off the blocks. Having three-putted the first, McIlroy flew the green on the third and failed to make par. En route to winning the US Open at Congressional, he went 35 holes without dropping a shot. At Royal St George's, he was 2 over after 3 and posted a 71. Luke Donald's early play indicated a low score, but this was an exception. Several putts slipped by on the front 9, And 3 bogeys coming home meant that the world number 1 joined McIlroy at 1 over. The shot of the day belonged to Dustin Johnson on the 16th.
It was pretty special. I couldn't see it go in the hole because, you know, you're blocked out by that mound. But obviously by the reaction of the crowd, I knew it went in. It was a perfect pitching wedge. Went right in the bucket.
Johnson shot 70 on a day when Miguel Ángel Jiménez was touched and inspired by the many tributes organized by the R&A to his great friend and fellow Spaniard, the late Seve Ballesteros. 47-year-old Jiménez pieced together an unblemished card for a 66. Good as Jiménez's round was, that of Thomas Bjorn was better. By sweeping his ball close to the hole on the 15th, he moved 5 under. Bjorn was first reserve. Only the withdrawal of Vijay Singh 3 days earlier had presented Bjorn with his place in the Open, but he took full advantage. All eyes were on the Dane as he walked to the 16th, the hole that cost him the claret jug in 2003. It was here that he relinquished a 2-stroke lead when it took him 3 shots to escape the greenside bunker. To avoid a repeat, club choice was vital.
I liked hitting things a little bit hard at that moment in time. So I stood up and hit a hard 9 and it climbed a little bit on me and I thought this could struggle to carry that bunker really when it was in the air, but it just did and rolled down nicely.
In the light of what had gone before, the resulting birdie was small revenge.
All of a sudden I was 6 under and, you know, feeling very, very good about what I was doing.
Despite dropping a shot at the last, Bjorn entered the clubhouse with a 65, leading the Open 5 under par. But with the death of his father in May still raw, try as he might, he couldn't disguise his emotions.
No, it was a good day. You know, I promised myself today I'll go out and focus on every single shot ahead of me and go after every single shot. And I did that. And he would have been very proud of what I did today. And that's all I really got to say.
Expectation is one thing, delivery entirely another. And to that end, Lee Westwood was disappointing. Frustrated by a rare sequence of 3 bogeys in as many holes, with no aspects of his game even approaching peak form, Westwood ended the day with a 71, 6 adrift of the pace. Whilst Westwood suffered, Darren Clarke prospered. Having moved back to Portrush, he became reacquainted with the nuances of links golf, and it showed with a 5-birdie 68. Dustin Johnson wasn't the only prominent American. Helped by birdies on the closing 3 holes, Lucas Glover came home in 31. And there was a fine effort from Webb Simpson on his Open debut, as he also ended the day 4 under. Winning the Open is one thing, retaining it another. Although Louis Westhuizen had his moments, he ended the day 2 over par. Playing behind Westhuizen was match 43, a group that included 5-time Open champion Tom Watson and 20-year-old amateur Tom Lewis. For the youngster, it was a pairing that held special significance. It was no coincidence they shared the same Christian name.
When Tom was born, it was dead easy. He was Tom because of Tom Watson. He was my hero. He was my dad's hero. He appeared to live his life like we thought was the correct way to do it. Everything about him was gentleman, sportsmanlike, and my dad loved him, and Jack came along, he was Jack Nicklaus.
What would normally have qualified as an interesting footnote became the central theme of a remarkable story as the former boys amateur winner at Royal St George's moved 2 under with a birdie on the 14th. With a vastly experienced caddy by his side, the junior Tom did it again on the 15th. And when Lewis struck one of the shots of the day on the short but demanding 16th, the birdie that followed carried him 4 under par.
When I was walking from 16 to 17, you know, I had goosebumps, you know, on my arms, and I was just like, this is good. You know, this is what I played golf for this.
A precise drive on the penultimate hole, followed by yet another crisp iron, placed Lewis on the verge of dreamland, leading the Open.
I kind of looked up at the board and I knew I was not far away. I thought, if I hold this, I think I can be in the lead. And I saw it, I just saw the putt. It was just about the pace. I felt like I only hit it about 5 feet, and it just kept rolling and rolling and rolling, and it rolled on a perfect line and dropped in. There's a massive screen by the clubhouse, and me and Duncan were on the TV, and I was just like, oh, look, Duncan's hus's on the TV. I think we're in the lead.
Just off the green at the last, his nerve held. When par was saved for a 65, a memorable day for both Toms had been capped.
It's always a pleasure to play with the young players because it gives me vicarious pleasure from the memories that I had when I was a young player. To see myself, see him, was I like him, or was he different than I was when I was 20? Tom played a wonderful round of golf. He struck the ball beautifully, and his putting was excellent. And he looked like he was very much in control of his golf game and his emotions.
Lewis had recorded the lowest round by an amateur in the 151-year history of the Open Championship. He was also the first amateur to lead since 1968, but 35 players, including many of the sport's leading lights, were within 4 of the pace. Day 2 of the championship, and the tireless work of the Royal St George's ground staff continued.
We had a tough year. Incredibly dry period between the end of February and the end of May, and Royal St George's was like a desert, really. The playing areas of the course, the tees, the fairways, the bunkers and the greens have been kept in wonderful condition by the green staff here. And all the players, they were universal in their praise for the golf course and the setup.
On Thursday morning, he was an unknown amateur. But what a difference a day can make. The subject of back and front page stories, watched on television by millions, Tom Lewis was thrust into the spotlight. So far, the youngster had upstaged everyone.
We did come in thinking, well, is it going to be about Donald? Is it going to be about Westwood, about McIlroy? And suddenly we had to sort of, scramble to find out as much as we could about Tom Lewis. He almost couldn't make it up. He's this good-looking boy. He looks like he's sort of from a boy band, playing, stupendous golf, and again doing it with a certain style and a class. So it was, sort of walked onto the back pages of the papers.
But on this day, the headlines will be grabbed by a playing partner 41 years his senior. Having powered the first 5 holes, Tom Watson struck his tee shot on the short 6th.
It was going right at the hole, and I just said, well, that's a pretty good looking shot. And then I listened for the cheer, because you can tell whether it's a close or it's in. The close cheer goes, ah! But the end shot goes, ah! So I knew it was in the hole.
The Open had again brought the best out of Watson, delighting his fans and the great man himself.
He was just so happy, and I was just like, I have to tee off next. How am I going to follow that?
The holes in ones are nice. They are very nice. That was my 15th one.
While Watson was excited, Lee Westwood was exasperated. The world number 2 slumped to 3 over par on the front 9 and would miss the cut. A first major win remained elusive. But his good friend Darren Clarke was making positive progress. With an unlikely eagle on the 7th, Clarke climbed to 3 under. Although several members of the game's elite struggled, Martin Keimer efficiently plotted his way around the course and needed to par the last to dip under 70 for the 2nd day in a row. At 3 under, the German was very much in the picture. Tied with Keimer was Chad Campbell. He finished strongly, producing a run of 3 birdies over the closing 6 holes, leaving him well placed at 3 under par. After 7 holes, Lucas Glover had moved into a share of the lead, but a frustrating back 9 saw the former US Open champion slip back to finish the day 4 under. Having dropped a shot at the 16th, Clarke now had to birdie the last to match Glover.
The shot was either a big 8-iron, which would have been quite difficult to get it close to the hole because of the shallowness of the right-hand side of that green. I decided, well, I'll just take a little 7-iron, hold it against the breeze and give myself a chance.
The gamble paid off. For many years, his putting was a weakness. But that week, touch was rediscovered. With a birdie, Clarke would be top of the leaderboard on 4 under.
And I'd got myself into a good position. I looked up and you're in a good position now. Carry on from where you are, but that's it. It's only a position.
Only a thin wooden post had prevented Tom Lewis from going out of bounds on the 18th. His second round was in stark contrast to the previous day. After those first round heroics, the youngster had been brought back to earth. Forced to grind from the outset, nothing came easily. He came home with a 74.
I said you had a wonderful round yesterday, and the law of averages kind of caught up with you. It's a few stray shots today. But you know, and I know, that's the game of golf. This game does average out. And over your course of a career, if you're above average, you're going to win some golf tournaments. But the highs and lows will average out.
For the 24th time, Watson made the cut in an Open championship. At 2 over, his eyes remained fixed on the claret jug. The wind stiffened, making life difficult for the afternoon starters. Scoring was expected to be significantly higher. Thomas Bjorn began badly with 3 early bogeys, but steadied his round to end a testing day at 3 under, just 1 shot off the lead. With so many veterans featuring, the Open was again showing that on the links, experience is priceless. Miguel Angel Jimenez used his short game knowledge to join Bjorn in ending the day at 3 under. 2 amateurs made the cut, Lewis and American Peter Uihlein. At 2 over par, the world's top-ranked amateur trailed Lewis by only 3 shots and retained hope of achieving his goal.
You know, it's definitely a goal coming here is being low amateur, you know, making the cut, being low amateur, and trying to see how well you can do. So, you know, I've done that, and I'm, you know, trying to have 2 good days. And, you know, if Tom keeps playing that well, you know, he's going to be tough to catch. So, you know, like I said, I hope we both have good weekends this next coming days.
But no one carried more expectation than Rory McIlroy. His first birdie arrived on the 6th. When another followed at the 7th, he was 1 under for the championship and creating a stir. But the charge was short-lived. In trouble after a wayward second, he bogeyed the 8th and made no further impact. McIlroy eventually signed for a 69 to be 4 off the lead. With 4 holes left, Luke Donald was 2 over par, set to make the cut. What followed surprised everyone. Usually so consistent, the Englishman closed with 4 consecutive bogeys. Donald joined such notables as Graham McDowell, Ian Poulter, Ernie Els, and 2003 champion Ben Curtis in departing. Clarke and Glover led the way, but only 4 shots covered the top 31 players on a tightly packed leaderboard. On day 3, buffeting wind and torrential rain struck the Kent coast. Summer had turned to winter. Friday had been the calm before the storm. For the early starters, desperate to make up lost ground, conditions were diabolical.
Saturday morning was hell for the guys that was out there. And we knew that it was going to be just absolute mayhem, and they just got blown off the golf course.
But despite the inclement weather, the crowd still came in their hordes. 36,000 spectators braved the conditions, and they would not be disappointed. From the outset, one of the game's greatest veterans delivered a masterclass in bad weather golf. While many a rival young enough to be his son had nightmares, Tom Watson tamed the beast that was now Royal St. George's.
When you get older and you've played enough links golf, you learn how to deal with it, to accept it if you're going to be successful at it. The older the player, the more comfortable you are with those uncertainties and the way the game has to be played. My 72 is pretty good for an old guy.
But 22-year-old Ricky Fowler also handled the conditions with a maturity that belied his age. He birdied the 5th before defying the wind on the 8th. Fowler reached the turn in 35 as others waged a losing battle.
He has a seasoned type of swing when it comes to flighting the ball for those types of conditions, and I was very impressed by that.
Fowler's ball striking continued to impress.
You know, special. He's got a way about him as a person that's brilliant, but and then he's got the golf game to back it up.
On a day when pars were tough to achieve, Fowler made 3 birdies in a stunning back 9.
You know, you expect that these days, that these youngsters, there's a certain thing about them that makes them capable of doing what youngsters maybe not be able to do 10, 15 years ago. And that was a very, very special round, and probably probably the best round of the week.
A day that began with McIlroy and Fowler on level terms ended with the American 6 shots clear of his rival at 2 under. His 68 was head and shoulders above the rest.
We knew it was going to play hard, and we knew it was going to be tough to make any birdies out there today, but you know, when you make the best of it and go at it with the right attitude, 68's possible. But I had to play pretty well to do that.
While Fowler excelled, Martin Keimer found the going extremely tough. 3 shots went in the opening 7 holes as the world number 3 steadily slid down the standings.
St George's is a tough golf course on any day. I mean, Royal St George's is a stern test. It doesn't respect any world rankings.
As the last home hope, respect for Clarke was rising. And on the first, he inspired the loudest cheer of the day.
There was a lot of Americans up there, and he was the people's favourite there after most of the other British guys like Lee, Luke Donald, and they'd all missed the cut, you know.
Feeding off his support, Clarke holed for birdie.
The crowd were every bit as important for me as any shot that I hit during the week. They were absolutely amazing.
But playing partner Lucas Glover wouldn't make a birdie all day. A bogey on the first set the tone for a round of 73. Shot of the day came from Anders Hansen on the 9th. In for an eagle. He moved 2 under, but while the front 9 ended in celebration, the 18th saw the Dane double bogey, ending on even par after 3 rounds. As the clouds lifted, Miguel Angel Jimenez was giving himself multiple chances. But there was a common theme building. Time and again, the Spaniard's putter would let him down, culminating in a 72, 1 under for the tournament. Bjorn's long game wasn't so effective, but he kept frustration at bay with a series of fighting pars during a 71 that kept his hopes alive. From tee to green, Clarke was playing the best golf of his life. But since his birdie on the opening hole, no putt of any length had been sunk until the 12th. At 5 under, he was now the outright leader. But after the turn, Dustin Johnson came alive, reveling in the challenge of links golf.
You got to hit all different shots. You hit it high, you hit it low, you got to hook it, you got to cut it.
Birdies at the 10th and 12th took him 4 under.
You know, a lot of shots don't even require a number, it requires feel. You just kind of feel it in there. Whatever shot you feel like it is, that's what you do.
Johnson's 68 was the joint lowest score of the day.
You know, I'm a real feel player, and I enjoy that.
For the 3rd time in just over a year, he had played his way into the last group of a major.
You know, it's a lot different being at the top of the leaderboard at a major. You know, there's a lot more on the line, and, you know, you want it that much more. So, you know, tomorrow I just got to go out and play my game, take it one shot at a time.
As the round wore on, Clarke brought his experience to bear.
One of the things that I've learned over the years with playing links golf courses has been to use the slopes that are there, especially when it gets very windy.
Hole after hole, he was magnificent.
You got to sort of use your imagination a little bit. You got to use the contours. for me on that Saturday, that was probably about as good as I could play.
In peak form and the only player with 3 rounds in the 60s, Clarke was in control, leading the Open. There were 6 Americans on the leaderboard, including Phil Mickelson. Fowler and Johnson had every right to be confident, but Clarke held a 1-shot advantage. The morning of the final round, expectation hung thick in the air. As Darren Clarke walked into the clubhouse on the biggest day of his career, he uncovered a note with a poignant message hidden in his locker.
It was a very kind little note, and it said, your locker's in the right place. It was a very nice little thing to receive before I was going out to play in the last round.
Out on the course, Tom Lewis continued to battle with Peter Uihlein for the coveted silver medal. An eagle on the 7th would help to keep his only rival at bay. Having teed off 5 shots behind, Phil Mickelson needed birdies. His first came on the 2nd hole. In the final group, both Clarke and Johnson were seeking to become first-time major winners. While the bookies favoured Johnson, Clarke was the crowd favourite. Almost 40,000 spectators had turned up to watch the day's events unfold.
You know, they've always been good to me coming over here. They've always, been very respectful, very nice to me, and I've always had a good following. So, I definitely enjoyed it. Even playing with Darren, which I know most of the crowds, they were all rooting for him and pulling for him, but, they were still very polite and, were cheering for me too, so it was nice.
The fans would not be disappointed. On the very first hole, Clarke faced a treacherous par putt. It would set the tone for what was to come.
He hadn't held any putts all day the day before as well as he played. It was going to be an issue, but then I started thinking, if he holds it, this could be exactly what he needs, is to hold a putt like this. I said to him when I was walking over him, that was exactly what you needed.
Having sensed he might soon be on level terms, Johnson made a less adventurous par to remain 1 behind. Battle was joined. Up ahead, dressed in his trademark final round Oklahoma State orange, Ricky Fowler's golf was much less colourful. He began with 5 straight pars to remain 2 under for the championship, 3 shots behind Clarke. Having staved off an unsettling bogey, the Irishman was back on track with a meticulous approach to the 2nd.
I just felt like we were going to do it the whole time. It was like the whole week was like that. It just kept, this feeling kept getting stronger, and it just kept getting stronger, and every day it kept getting stronger.
When he converted for a birdie, Clarke was 2 clear of the field. But by this time, the bit was between the teeth of a multiple major champion. On the 4th, a hole where many struggled, Mickelson set up another birdie opportunity. He was now very much on the media radar and 4 shots off the pace. When he hit the green on the 6th, spectators and writers alike suspected they were witnessing something special. They were. Mickelson had reduced the deficit to 3. And when he set up a possible eagle on the 7th, the American had grabbed everyone's attention.
He gets to the 7th, and you know the heat is starting to rise, and he had an awkward little putt, and he nailed it. We obviously sort of buzz comes back down through the galleries that Mickelson's on his charge. We hear he's got an eagle. I thought it was fantastic. You just felt this real buzz.
And you thought, wow, this could be one of the great charges, one of the great wins in the Open.
When Clarke bogeyed the 4th, Mickelson had surged into a share of the lead. They were 2 clear of Johnson and 3 in front of Fowler. Meanwhile, in the battle for the silver medal, Uline was fighting hard to catch Lewis.
And I knew he was getting closer. I was going up and he was coming back. And I was embarrassed if I didn't win the silver medal, from leading the Open to then losing to another amateur. And in the last round, I played really well.
Lewis held his nerve, determined that his efforts from day one would not be wasted. It was good enough to ensure that his goal would be achieved.
To win the silver medal as an amateur, in your final year as an amateur, was just excellent for me. And I realised that more after my round than I did during the round.
Lewis finished tied 30th, at 9 over par, 3 clear of Uline.
I was very pleased for him. I think you get opportunities, and it's whether you can take them. And I think he took it.
Back on the 6th, aware he was in danger of becoming detached from the leaders, Thomas Bjorn acted. A terrific 2, but the immediate future wasn't bright. With a nasty squall brewing on the horizon, Bjorn and the rest were again battered by the elements. Creativity was called for, and the Dane delivered with a low second into the wind to the 8th green. A birdie would result, and at 3 under, his presence couldn't be ignored. Tied for the lead with Mickelson, Clarke knew his second shot to the 7th was crucial, but was faced with a club selection dilemma.
It was either a ripped 8-iron up in the air and let the wind take it a little bit, or play sensibly and have a 7-iron that the best is going to do is finish 40 foot behind the absolute best.
If Phil wasn't that close to us, we probably would have took a 7, but we weren't afforded that luxury at that point. I said, you know, I think you got to hit 8. He says, is that bunker in play with this club? And I went, it's borderline, but you got to just hit that shot. And he goes, right.
Mickelson's charge had forced Clarke's hand. In sport, champions require courage, and he delivered.
It almost made him get a little bit more sharper. It just made him, and he just got a little bit more into the zone. And just for that moment, I remember feeling that from him. He just went a little bit. He got a little bit more of a killer instinct in him. And then he went up and he held the putt. But I actually thought it was missing. I think I closed my eyes and the crowd roared, and I opened my eyes and the ball was gone.
An eagle had restored his 2-shot lead.
It helped him. It helped the way he played for the rest of the round. It was crucial to get it, and it was a big hole for us, yeah.
But Johnson would remain in the hunt. With birdie on the same hole, he trailed Clarke by 4. Having narrowly failed to pick up further shots, Mickelson covered the front 9 in 30, before inspiring another huge cheer on the 10th. Once again, he was on Clarke's heels. On the 9th, the leader was faced with an awkward lie when fate once again intervened. Clarke's ball hurdled the bunker and ran up to the middle of the green.
We just kept getting moments like that the whole week where I kept feeling like, God, someone's helping us here, you know what I mean? There's someone upstairs helping us. It felt like that the whole time.
But on the 11th green, the golfing gods frowned on Mickelson. A simple par putt missed, and with the American's first mistake of the day, his momentum faded. Bjorn began the back nine, needing to make further inroads. More birdies were essential, but elusive. He stuck at 3 under. Dustin Johnson remained in contention. His second, to the 10th, only served to increase the pressure on Clarke as he moved to 4 under. As the final 2 ball were warmly greeted on the green, Mickelson encountered more dejection on the 13th.
One of the reasons we love golf is because there are these sort of enduring little fragilities even among the best players. It feels like the game for them is a constant battle to keep that concentration, to keep that mental strength. And even, say, a player as good as Mickelson has these little sort of the fragilities.
In 6 holes, Mickelson would drop 4 shots. His challenge was over.
I think it was a magnificent, final day in the sense that he made a battle of it. But there was something sort of impregnable about Darren on that Sunday that you felt that nothing was going to knock him off.
A vital component in any Open success is the ability to scramble. Clarke did so to salvage par on the 11th and stay in control. In the penultimate group, title hopes were fast receding. After 13 pars, Fowler's first bogey of the day left the Californian at 1 under and too far adrift. Dustin Johnson was now Clarke's only threat. His approach to the 12th set up another birdie as he clawed within 2 of the lead. Both parred the 13th, in what by now had developed into a 2-horse race. Bjorn was alone in 3rd, albeit 4 back. As one of the game's biggest hitters, Johnson knew that the long par 5 14th was just about within range.
I needed to make a birdie on 14 to get a little more pressure on him. And then I figured, I really had a chance if I did something good coming down the stretch.
270 yards from the flag was an opportunity he couldn't ignore. There were no thoughts of caution.
I thought the shot to get it close was a 2-iron because I had to hit a low and let it roll. I hit a little thin and pushed it a little bit. When you hit it thin, especially when you're trying to hook it, it kind of goes straight, and that's what it did. It just kind of went straight. On a course like that, it's hard to push, and when you try to push, you make mistakes, and there you go.
Johnson's ball had flown out of bounds. A double bogey 7 was looming, and Clarke had one hand on the trophy.
The cameraman was rushing up, putting the camera into my face. What's going on here? So I look back around, and Dustin's dropping another ball. All of a sudden, it took a couple of seconds to figure out that he had headed out of bounds.
With Johnson in trouble, there was no need for heroics. Clarke struck a solid 7-iron into the heart of the green.
Maybe all day Sunday, I played like an old professional. I am an old professional, and I probably played like one. I manoeuvred my way around the golf course.
4 shots clear with 4 to play. Clarke was now in complete control. On the 18th, Mickelson again displayed his sublime short game in an attempt to save par. Phil's front 930 had electrified the closing day. But what Royal St George's gave on the way to the turn, it took back. Mickelson came home in 38. He and Johnson had led a strong American challenge few had predicted. But when Johnson's birdie putt on the 17th was just off target, it was apparent the challenge was over. Fowler and Bjorn strolled down the 18th, wondering what might have been. But 8 years after the most cruel setback of his career, an extraordinary week at Sandwich left Bjorn with a justifiable sense of pride.
Certainly where I came from, it was a remarkable week for me. But when you're in it, you know, on Sunday, you want more, and that's a natural thing. You know, one of the journalists wrote it was a brave performance. To some extent, I agree with him, you know, because I was constantly reminded of some things that were really negative in my career. So I had to push through that all the time. You know, I don't live in the past, and I really don't, but, you know, it'll still make me smile about what happened in 2003 than trying to avoid it.
Before the championship, Darren Clarke was a 200-to-1 rank outsider. Many thought his chances of winning a major had gone, but now his name sits on the claret jug, his legacy assured.
There's always pressure to unleash the engraver, as I call it, a little early. I did this time let the engraver go when Darren hit his second shot.
I remember thinking about saying enjoy the walk, you know what I mean? I can't remember what we did or we didn't at that point. And, you know, I was just so happy for him.
It's the thing you sort of dream about, isn't it? You know, the fact that I'm 3 shots ahead, that I'm just off the edge of the green, and it's like, wow, I can really savor this now. I can really, really enjoy this walk. I can't really put it into words. The way I feel about links golf and everything, to have fulfilled the dream of winning the Open Championship was, you know, it was just, wow. Oh, wow. You strive towards it, and I often thought, it'd be wonderful, what would it be like to be a major champion? And I fulfilled that dream, but not just a major champion, the Open champion. This is the biggest and best out of all of them. Your name is on that trophy, and nobody can ever take that away from you. This is the oldest, the biggest, and the best. I knew that my game was still okay. Better than still okay, but to go out and perform and do what you need to do, you know, is not always that easy. At the Open, I was able to do that. I played like I can play.
Americans Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson tied for second, with Thomas Bjorn a shot further back in fourth. But 3 shots clear, the week was Darren Clarke's. His 20th appearance in the Open was glorious. Before Royal St George's celebrated the 140th Open winner, it was time to reflect upon a champion of times past.
I think the Open defined Seve. We couldn't let the first Open since his death go by without celebrating his life.
This year, the world of golf lost one of its greatest players and special personalities, Severiano Ballesteros. There never has been a more exciting golfer, and his contribution to the game of golf was immense. Can I ask you all to join me in a short applause in remembrance of Seve Ballesteros.
Eras change, but appreciation is everlasting. The history of the Open is cherished, and so are its winners.
And with a score of 275, the winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Darren Clarke.